Today's horror manga dubbed narration is the Tibetan Route Monster, from the horror anthology, A Collection of Peculiar Happenings. If you enjoy the story at any point in time, please do not hesitate to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me out a lot. Anyways, without further ado, let's get right into this chilling tale. I hope you all enjoy.
Uncle, it's Xiaofeng.
The incident happened in 2017 in a normal housing area in Jingyang County, Shaoan City, Shaanxi Province.
Xiaofeng, why are you here? You're so busy with work. It's fine. New Year's Day is coming soon.
New Year's Day was coming. According to custom, I drove for 2 hours from the city to come here and visit my uncle.
Your parents are doing fine, right?
Yes, they are. My uncle used to be the captain of the transport team, specializing in running the Tibet route. He experienced many horrible and bizarre things, but I was young then, so he never told me anything. I only heard bits and pieces from my parents and relatives.
Uncle, I want to ask you something.
What is it, you little punk? But the more they tried to hide it from me, the more curious I got. Now that I had graduated and started working, I had to grab this opportunity to get him to tell me his stories.
Uncle, I heard from my parents that you encountered many weird things when you were younger. When I asked you, you always said I was just a kid, but now I'm all grown up.
After setting down the items and engaging in some small talk, I couldn't wait anymore. I asked Uncle to tell me about the horrifying incidents he encountered.
What are you doing about those incidents again?
Alright, I'll tell you one of them. Uncle's expression turned solemn at the mention of the incident. He stared at me for a long time, sighed, and started telling me the story of the incident that finally made him decide to leave the team. Uncle used to be a transportation officer. After he retired, he was relocated to the transportation team in the city. He was in charge of running the line between Tibet and Shaanxi, transporting all sorts of goods. To be honest, back then, it was a highly sought-after job. Many young ladies deemed it an honor to marry a driver. But at that time, the conditions of the Tibetan line were terrible. Only the drivers themselves understood the dangers and difficulties involved. During one of his missions, Uncle was assigned to the end of the team. Because there was a risk of falling behind, it was the most dangerous position. Thinking he was experienced, Uncle didn't think much of it, but that day, after entering no man's land, a sandstorm hit the team. Drawing on his experience, Uncle reduced his speed and drove along slowly for a while, pulling apart the distance between him and the team ahead. The communication systems back then were poor, and the sandstorm was violent enough to obscure the sun and the clouds above. Soon, Uncle lost contact with the rest of his teammates, becoming isolated and helpless. Uncle said that such a situation was very dangerous because he had no substitute driver or food supplies. If he got lost in no man's land, he could be trapped there and die. When Uncle was starting to grow anxious, he suddenly saw a figure walking on the road ahead. My uncle was overjoyed, thinking that it must be his teammate ahead who saw that he had fallen behind, and they'd come back to look for him. Not only was he happy, but he was also very touched. After all, in the windy sand, where he could hardly see on his own fingers, coming back for him was a feat no ordinary man dared do. Overwhelmed with emotion, my uncle decided to get out of the car in the wind and sand to greet his teammate. The sandstorm that day was stronger than ever. After taking just a few steps, Uncle felt that he was about to be blown into the sky. The sand and stones thrown by the strong wind sliced his face like a knife. In such extreme weather, no human being could bear to open his eyes at all. Uncle desperately covered his face with his arms and forced himself to look forward, so as to not lose track of the person. But right when Uncle approached the person, he was taken aback by the sight in front of him and stopped. Through the wind and sand, Uncle still couldn't clearly see the face of the man in front of him, but the huge shadow nearly 3 meters tall made him understand that this definitely wasn't his teammate. It didn't even seem human. Although Uncle stopped, the dark shadow got closer and closer, slowly growing clearer and clearer. Even though it was a humanoid figure, its tall and sturdy appearance made him shudder. Just when Uncle was so frightened he felt his muscles turning into jelly, the black shadow came to a stop in front of him. Although the raging wind and sand clouded his sight, Uncle could almost hear the black shadow gasping. Uncle's fear had reached its limits. With a mysterious burst of strength, he turned around and fled in the direction of his car. The thing seemed to sense that Uncle was about to run away. It sped up behind him, its heavy footsteps making the entire road tremble. Uncle had already used all of his strength, but the thing behind him was faster than him, appearing behind him again in a few steps. Fortunately, my uncle had been a soldier for many years, and his reaction speed and mental faculties were well trained. Finally, he ran back into the truck and closed the door firmly. Uncle locked all the doors and windows and listened carefully to the movement outside, trying to discern the movement of the thing over the sound of the wind and sand. But the noise outside was so loud, he could only vaguely feel that the thing seemed to be circling around the car. Suddenly, there was a large noise from the glass on the left side of the cab. A huge, black hand slammed on the window. Immediately afterwards, an eerily white face approached the window. But when the face completely pasted itself to the window, Uncle saw clearly that it was indeed a human face. No, to be accurate, it was nothing but the skin of a human face. It was a whole face torn from a person's head, then tightly pressed to the skull of a huge black monster. Although there were only 2 black holes where its eyes should have been, Uncle could clearly feel that the thing under the human skin mask was staring at him. Uncle was frightened out of his mind by the horrifying sight in front of him, but as they say, humans will fight back when their fear has reached its limits. Uncle was no exception. He suddenly sobered up. He knew that the only way to survive was to leave this place immediately. Even if he got lost in no man's land, he would not be killed by this monster here. Uncle forced his hands to stop trembling, and even though the monster was desperately bashing and shaking the body of the truck outside, he still managed to start the truck. Uncle floored the accelerator, and the truck sped through the strong wind and sand, finally escaping that terrible thing. When he left the area, Uncle realized that his muscles had been trembling involuntarily, and the cold sweat soaked through his clothes, covering his whole body. Uncle was lucky. After driving in the sand for more than half an hour, he finally caught up with the convoy parked on the side of the road to avoid the sandstorm. But he was not the only one who fell behind that day. there was also the teammate who had been driving second to last. When the storm died down slightly, they found him behind a mound about 2 kilometers away from the main road. But when they saw the driver, they were all scared witless. He was already dead, and it looked like he had been bitten to death by some animal. The most frightening thing was that his entire face had been torn off, as if it disappeared into thin air.
What kind of monster was it to actually wear human skin?
Since that incident, Uncle quit his job after he came home, and spent the rest of his life doing odd jobs in Xi'an. Many people did not understand why.
I don't know, and I don't want to know. There are many mysterious things in the vast no man's land.
I know that this must be a true incident, because Uncle was not the kind to brag. He usually didn't even talk very much. Of course, I could understand. If I had such a terrifying experience, I would rather forget it too. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. I'd like to take this time to give a very special thanks to my Patreons and YouTube members. The Last Sin Eater, Motosurf, Leo, Minue, Kago, Louise V, and Lady Scare. Thank you so much everyone, and remember, you're important and you matter. Have a great night everyone. Goodbye.